Broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And I am sitting here very angry, very annoyed after our lovely 0-0 draw in the Europa League last night against VILLARREAL, against Unai Emery's VILLARREAL, and we are out of the competition at the semi-final stage. Now, if you're just looking at this as an outsider, you'd say, fair enough, they got to the semi-finals, Arsenal done very well, they can't win every competition, that's fine, but the way we went out in this game, in this tie, was nothing short of a disgrace, really. Arsenal were bad for 180 minutes of football. To even be into the tie after the first leg was a testament to how much Emery can really go conservative. And we got lucky with a penalty that on another day another ref wouldn't have given. But then to have that hope and not use it on the night last night to energise them was ridiculous. I will get more into it, and I'm sure this is going to be a very emotional filled podcast, because usually I take a measured approach into everything I look at, but I can't do that today because I think last night I just felt dejected. I don't know if you follow me guys on Twitter, but if you do, I was on a Twitter Spaces thing last night and was really discussing everything about it and where we go from here. But obviously those larger picture things will come into focus later on in the podcast. In terms of the actual game, we'll talk about it now. So let's just start with the lineup. So Bernd Leno started in goal with Hector Bellerin at right back, so he was rewarded for a decent performance against Newcastle on the weekend. Rob Holding and Pablo Mari were the centre-backs. I was very shocked that Gabriel didn't start this game. He performed really well on the weekend, and I'm just not really sure what he's done to not be starting these games. It's not to say Pablo Mari was bad last night. He was actually pretty fine last night. But I just don't understand why Gabriel wasn't starting, because I think Gabriel is the player who's a bit more potential and someone we should be giving experience here in a European semi-final. At left back was originally supposed to be Granit Xhaka, because when the lineup came out before, there was a hint that maybe Saka at left back and Xhaka was moving back into midfield. But then as the evening progressed, Arteta confirmed that Saka was in the front line and Xhaka was at left back. But that was changed as well just before, as Granit Xhaka picked up an injury. So Kieran Tierney, who has returned from a lengthy absence out, returned at left back, and it was good to see him back. He did look short of match fitness, which is understandable when you've been out as long as he has, but it was just nice to see him back, really. In midfield, it was a one-man midfield with Thomas Partey and a four ahead of him of Saka on the right, Odegaard, Smith Rowe and Nicolas Pepe, with captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang up front. So Partey was a one-man midfield here, and that's something that I think is a bit more adventurous from the coach. And in terms of the lineup, that is a very adventurous team, because you're basically asking Odegaard and Smith Rowe to be dual H. You have two creative players. You have Saka and Pepe who can make something, and Aubameyang as well, who's obviously the great finisher we know he is. We started with good possession, but we were nervous. You could tell we were nervous. And the first 45 minutes, in hindsight, were an absolute disgrace. I, as a fan, can be nervous about these games because, you know, I'm a fan. I can be nervous because I just want the best from the side. But when players come out and when the game starts, you're supposed to have nerves fade away, basically. And we just didn't do that at all. The nerves, you could tell it was really nervous. They needed fans, it seemed like. We just wasn't really good. We were just doing stupid, simple mistakes, like giving the ball away cheaply. We just couldn't keep the ball. And that's been a theme this season, is that we've just been making stupid decisions on the ball. We just don't play good passes. We panic a lot. Villarreal were blocking passing lanes very well. They sat back, even with a high line, but they weren't allowing us to progress through the midfield. But to credit Emery, he set up Villarreal very well to do that. We needed to move the ball quicker. There were 2 times in the first half where Pepe and Saka switched sides, but it didn't really do anything. There were a lot of times where the long ball was on and David Luiz was missed, but we just didn't create enough, really. We had 2 chances that were really good in the first half. Aubameyang hit the post with an outside the boot effort from a corner. It was a really lovely effort, and if it went in, it was fantastic. And then Aubameyang also had another shot, one of those classic Aubameyang shots from the left-hand edge of the box. It was an easy save for the keeper, but he nearly fumbled it into the net. We needed to attack quicker, and we even had some luck and fortune. Obviously, you don't want any player from another side to go down injured, but COYG looked threatening in the game, but he went down injured and had to go off. So that was really sad for him, but for Arsenal, that was a boost. But we just didn't take advantage of that at all. That first half was a waste. It was a waste, and for a tie that we were behind in, and an early goal would have settled the nerves and had to make Villarreal come out a bit, we just didn't do enough in that first half. I mean, we had 4 shots in the first half, 1 on target, and that was the Aubameyang effort, which nearly fumbled into the goal. It just wasn't really good enough in the first half. Villarreal had the same amount of shots on target and same amount of shots as us in that first half, so it wasn't really good. So you hoped that when we went in at half-time that Arteta would give them a real bollocking and that the players would come out in the second half much more motivated than they are. And to the credit, they came out and they were quicker. Pepe had a shot after the first minute in the second half. It was well set up by Tierney. We were pressing higher. We were more urgent. Smith Rowe had a dink when Bellerin crossed and the keeper fumbled, and it was just wide. It was really unlucky, but it was really clever from Smith Rowe. He was the only player that can really come out of this game with any credit at all, because he was just wonderful on the day. If we think about it, like he was just a lovely player on the day. Some of the turns he was doing, they are Jack Grealish like. They're just so smooth, and he deserved better really than what we got. Villarreal started getting into it more, but it was just more of the same. We weren't really creating anything that was really good. Holding had a header over the bar. We had been poor basically apart from those first 5 minutes in the second half. Holding had another header which went just wide. And then another moment where Aubameyang had a header from a Bellerin cross which hit the post, and I have no idea why it didn't go in. It was completely baffling. You'd think it went in. It didn't. It was a real shame. And then after that, I have no idea why Mikel Arteta done what he did. Now, the first change he made in this game was bringing on Gabriel Martinelli for Martin Odegaard, which is fine. He put Saka in midfield and put Martinelli on the left. Now, Martinelli didn't have the impact that you would have wanted him to have, and that's understandable. Sometimes those changes don't always work, and sometimes those players don't get into it. And I love Martinelli. I think he's a fantastic player. He should be playing more than he has been. But what was the worst thing about this was the second change he made, and that was to take Aubameyang off for Lacazette, and he also brought Willian on for Kieran Tierney. Now, at this point, we had 10 minutes left, so this was the 80th minute. Why, oh why, did Mikel Arteta take off Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang? This was literally just after Aubameyang had hit the post. I don't know why you take off your best goal scorer in a situation like this. That is the worst substitution I've ever seen in my entire life. It just baffled me. I've seen one other substitution that is equally as bad, and it was actually by Arsene Wenger, who's actually very good at substitutions, which I'd never got the criticism about Arsene Wenger being bad at substitutions, but he, in 2012-13, took off Olivier Giroud for Francis Coquelin when we needed a goal against Villa away, and it finished 0-0. And I remember that because it was so bad, but Arteta topped it last night. That substitution was awful, and it helped us in no way at all. We proceeded to create nothing after that. We started giving away stupid fouls. I think the last thing was Pepe doing some great work, and then Bellerin had a shot blocked. But after that, we just had no chance, and it finished 0-0. Out of the Europa League and practically out of Europe. That is the last time you will see Arsenal Football Club in European competitions for a long, long time. And it's completely deserved, because not only has the coach underperformed, and we can now talk about the coach has had a disaster season. I've tried to sit here and look for positives, because I try and be an optimistic fan, a hopeful fan, because what's the point of being negative all the time? But today is the day where he has practically lost most of the fan base, including myself. I just don't see how it gets better from here now. He's too conservative, he's too cautious. Even when you have a ray of sunshine, he goes back to being conservative. It's not even like we're defending that well as well. I'm sure if Villarreal wanted to try and Emery wanted to try and go for us, he would have, but he didn't. He didn't need to. Our attack is so toothless. And we had a period where we were doing decent stuff with Smith Rowe, with Odegaard, with Aubameyang up top. And it's just completely gone away because teams have worked us out. And it's exactly the same like what happened with the 3-4-3 last season. He found a solution, credit him for finding it. But then when teams found him out, he wasn't able to do more. He wasn't able to work out how to make that team better. And we went on a horrid run. Came out after Christmas, found a system that worked. It got found out, and now we're here. Out of Europe, not qualifying for Europe next season. And that's on him and how disastrous the season is. That's not to say that he is the only thing to blame for where we are now. The structure above him is appalling. Edu, the jury's out, really. I don't trust him to make good recruitment decisions in the summer. I don't even know if he's above Arteta, because Arteta is manager now. So what does Edu do that justifies him staying here? And then you got the owners who do not care about this football club at all unless it is making money for them. That's why they wanted us to join the European Super League, because Arsenal would have been guaranteed money no matter how badly they performed, because they would have never been relegated. They wouldn't have to make good decisions because they would always guaranteed that money. Now they have to make decisions. They have to act. They have to do something. But history has told us that they're not going to do anything, or they're not going to make the smart decision. What will probably happen in the summer is that Arsenal spend a lot of money on older players to get out of this as quick as possible. Arsenal don't need that. Arsenal need a complete reset. If any of you watch NBA, you know teams go through resets. They get rid of their high caliber players to empty up cap space so they can bring in better players and use draft picks to bring in other players. Obviously, it's different in a European football structure. I understand that. But Arsenal can't be bringing in older players again on high wages. It can't happen. This squad is a mess. That's because of the recruitment over the last 4 to 5 years. I always go back to the fact that we brought Lacazette and then 6 months later we brought in Aubameyang to replace Alexis Sanchez. And Aubameyang has been a really good player for us because he is a really good player. But why did you bring in Lacazette 6 months before? You could have spent that money on a winger, which we needed at that time. Not getting money for Ramsey, for Ozil, for Alexis. These are all players that should have been sold for actual money. But no, we kept them for too long and they all left for free. Even players like Danny Welbeck could have got us money. We could have used that money to reinvest into different players, but we didn't do that. That's how bad the squad is and that squad mess. And to top it all off was the last summer when we brought in Willian on a 3-year contract when Chelsea, just down the road, only offered him a 2-year contract. We thought, yes, that's fine. We'll give you a 3-year contract, Willian, because we think you're a good player. Everyone in the fan base pretty much condemned the move, and it has actually somehow been worse than what we expected. For him to come on yesterday as one of our options to try and get a goal was absolutely laughable. What is Willian going to do? What has he done all season? Nothing. Get a few assists from corners and crosses. Wow. Fantastic. This is where we are now. We are 9th in the league. We are a mid-table side. We have players that are not good enough. We have a coach that's not good enough. We have an owner that is not good enough. Where's the hope? Where do we go from here? Now, again, when I was on Twitter Spaces last night, there was a conversation about Arsenal and someone said football can change quickly. And that's something I've said on this podcast a lot. Football can change quickly. Last year, West Ham were near the relegation zone with David Moyes. With that same coach, they're near the top 4 this season. Liverpool were champions last year and were doing fantastic. But now they're 7th and could be qualifying for the Europa Conference League. A lot of things can change upwards and downwards, but I just don't see it at all. Because even if you sack Arteta, do you see the people above him making a coherent decision? The coach is bad, we know that. I'm saying that. The coach should go. Unai Emery got sacked for a lot less than this. So Arteta should go if we're keeping up those standards. But then I don't trust Edu or whoever, Vinay, to make the right call to bring in a good manager. They'll probably bring in Thierry Henry because that's who they will think is a smart, intelligent hire. That's not a smart, intelligent hire. No way. And you're probably screaming here saying, Daniel Ek, please take us over. There's no guarantee that Daniel Ek will make us better. We are in a bad situation, a very bad situation, and there's no quick fix here. Arsenal should accept where they are. They're a mid-table side, without Europe, with a squad that's not good enough, with a coach that's underperformed all season. Start again. Arteta should get the sack this summer. Bring in a coach who will come in, implement his ideas over pre-season and start the season afresh. But no, what we will do is give Arteta more time. He will get sacked in October and November. And then we will bring in a coach mid-season who won't have time to implement his ideas, and we would have wasted another season. Arsenal fans should trust no one at this club. Absolutely no one. We are lucky that we have some good young players in Saka, Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Kieran Tierney. These are good young players. Even Saliba and Gabriel are good young players. We are lucky we have those players. And those players should be the ones we are targeting. It's not to say that we should go all young. But I'm saying that bringing in more Willians is exactly what has got us into this mess. So stop doing it. Stop doing it now. The season's over. There's 4 Premier League games left against Palace, Chelsea, who are in the Champions League final, Brighton and West Brom, who we have on Sunday. Who cares about what happens? I saw a stat saying we can still qualify for the Europa Conference League. Who cares? I don't care about the Europa Conference League. Just finish the season, really. Liverpool have a game in hand on us anyway, so we're not going to catch 7th. The highest we could probably finish is 8th, and even then, that's not really progress, that's just stagnation. This summer for Arsenal is huge. It has been for a while, but I'm just afraid they're going to bring in mediocre players or players who used to be really good, who are older, and they think they can quick fix us. Someone like Oscar will probably get linked because we can't sign Martin Odegaard. And that's not to say Martin Odegaard was good yesterday. He was really bad. Him and Partey were pretty bad yesterday. And the worst thing about it is that the fans greeted the team on the coach into the stadium, getting them fired up, and they produced the first 45 minutes that they had with an absolute disgraceful performance. Basically, I'm at a point where Kroenke out, Arteta out, Edu out, everyone out. I'm not really in a mood anymore to back anyone because it's not really going to change anything. Arteta has put in enough evidence now to show that he's not worth the pain anymore. Edu, not good enough. Kroenke's, they don't care. And that's where I'm at, really. So a real disappointing night overall in a disappointing season. So I've got a couple of questions on Twitter. And again, thank you for asking me these questions. You can ask me these questions at AFC Met on Twitter, at AFC Met on Twitter. So the first question comes from regular contributor Billy Johnson 101, and he asks, is it fair to say that Arsenal on another day win that game easily, and whilst that is most of the frustration stems from that, it is also most of the optimism should stem from? I think Arsenal on another day do win that game, but I think it comes back to the fact that we don't create enough chances to win football matches. We play on the fine margins way too often, and it's just not good enough. We just expect to nick games 1-0, and I'm sorry to go back to Arsene Wenger because we should be moving on from that era. Arsene Wenger always used to try for more goals, for 3-4 goals. That's what he would try for. And he would always try for a load of shots because football is a low-scoring game. It's not like basketball, like I was saying earlier. Basketball, you can go up and down the ends and get loads of points. But this is just a low-scoring game. Goals are precious. And you should be creating as much chances as you can to win games because the more shots you have, the more likely you are to score. And we just don't do that at all. We had 14 shots last night. We scored 1 goal from open play in 180 minutes against Villarreal. Actually, it wasn't even from open play, it was a penalty. So we scored 0 goals from open play. It's just not good enough, really, when you think about it. And I understand where you're coming from because Aubameyang hitting the post twice. That's unlucky. The keeper fumbling, a lot of chances. Yes, fine. But we didn't do enough in our performance. There was no urgency. There was no desire to really go at them. This was a European semi-final, and you could say it was just like any other home game. It didn't feel like a European semi-final apart from the fact that we were playing a team that don't play in England. That is all I can say, really. I understand, again, that the Aubameyang chance when he hit post twice is unlucky, but we don't do anything to create more luck because, yes, you miss those chances, but what about creating another 5 chances of that quality? We just don't do that at all. It's just not good enough from us. So the frustration is completely deserved, and that's what I think a lot of Arsenal fans are feeling at the moment. It's just completely frustrated and sick of it all. I think a lot of Arsenal fans are hurting at the moment. The standards have slipped so much, and here we are. But thanks for your question, Billy. And the last question is from Yes Sir Ski. Sorry if I got that wrong, but I think that's right. With hindsight, what changes would you have made to the team last night? It's difficult because I thought the team was actually quite well balanced. I think I spoke about it earlier in the podcast. I think Gabriel should have started instead of Mari. Obviously, the Xhaka thing is a shame. I would have liked him to be in the lineup, especially in midfield. apart from that, the rest of the lineup was fine. I know people have been going on about Odegaard, but he brings technical security to the team in a team where we are completely lacking technical security. But it was more about how he was set up, and that's from the manager. We had enough players on that pitch to win that game, to score at least one goal, and we just didn't do that at all. We were very, very, very poor. And that comes down to the coach, really, ultimately, because the coach didn't really do anything to set up the team in a way that we were going to get goals. That 45 minutes in the first half was absolutely horrid, terrible. There was just no point in it. We were absolutely woeful all that game. We had a 5-minute burst after the second half, but apart from that, we were awful, woeful. There was just absolutely no point. But thanks for your questions, guys. As you can probably tell that I'm not very happy with the direction Arsenal are going in. I always try and end it on an upbeat note, and like I said earlier in the podcast, football can change quickly. We might be better next season. I don't have much hope in that, but we might be. And it's very difficult for me to say that now because it's something that I don't really believe, but it could be better next season. Who knows? I hope it is, but I just don't see it personally. But thank you for joining me on this podcast. Thank you for all the support. And thank you for listening to all my ramblings about this horrible football club. Anyway, we have a game on Sunday. There's not really anything to play for, but I'll be reviewing that as soon as I can. And until then, come on, you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and De Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh!